We're back.
What's up, bitches?
Hi, how are you? How you doing?
Sorry, I'm looking at a menu.
This we caught up last episode. We did some NASCAR ghost stories last episode. Oh wait, we're recording these out of order. So
No, this one's the next one from what I have on my list.
Well, in this schedule, this will be the Halloween episode.
Oh, okay.
So anyway, we're bringing you some Halloween homicides this week. And I was looking for something, but I can't find it. Anyway, and I'll go ahead and we'll get right on into it.
Do it, lady.
So, number one, the first one, the episode will be titled 13 Halloween Homicides. So, number one, missing candy. Liddell, and I do want to say that, because these are homicides, please be mindful that there is there's going to be descriptions of domestic violence.
Trigger warning.
Yeah, just, all the trigger warnings up front. So number one, missing candy. Liddell Peoples, 55, lost his cool on Halloween night in 2011 during a domestic disturbance in the south side of Chicago. He was not able to track down his bag of Hershey's, Jolly Ranchers, and Tootsie Rolls and accused his partner, 49-year-old Maria Adams, of stealing them from him. In response to the accusation, Maria threw a plate at him. In turn, he picked up a knife and repeatedly stabbed her, and she died in the hospital, and Liddell was sentenced to only 30 years for the crime.
What? Yeah. Only 30 years?
That's
over candy.
That's a recurring pattern.
Jesus.
She's lost her life, and he's ruined the rest of his life over Halloween candy.
Anyway. All right. Well, the next one, Halloween night of 1998, saw the usual juvenile and annoying pranks like egging cars and houses. After a long day of work and trick-or-treating with his girlfriend and her son, Carl Jackson, 21, was not in the mood to have his car egged because,
nobody ever is.
Right. The South Bronx has a reputation for being tough, and unfortunately for Carl, Curtis Sterling, who was 17, wanted to do just that. When Carl stepped out of his car to talk to the kid, Curtis shot Carl in the head and killed him instantly. Sterling was arrested, charged, and imprisoned for the murder. Every year on Halloween, Carl Jackson's mother sends Curtis Sterling a card telling him that she's glad he's rotting in prison.
A queen. Snaps for Carl's mom.
Girl, do it, lady.
Yes. October 31st, 1981 in Amarillo, Texas, 76-year-old nun, Sister Tata Benz, was raped and strangled in her convent. On November 9th, Johnny Frank Garrett was arrested for the atrocious and vicious crime, and he lived right across the street from the convent. And on February 11th, 1992, he was executed via lethal injection by the state of Texas. His final meal was ice cream, and his final words were, "I'd like to thank my family for loving me and taking care of me, and the rest of the world can kiss my ass."
I read that as via lethal. No. He was executioned, and I was like, that's not a word.
Since his execution, there have been doubts raised surrounding whether he actually committed the crime, and more people believe that he was, in fact, innocent. But that doesn't help him or Sister Tata now, though, unfortunately.
Well, on Sunday, October 31st of 2010, Ohio teenager Devin Griffin was returning home from church and discovered that his brother Derek, mother Susan, and Susan's new husband William Lisk, I'm going to say Lisk.
Yeah, I think Lisk.
Were all dead, savagely murdered in their home. The only suspect was William Lisk Jr., who suffered from schizophrenia and had a documented history of violence and wildly unpredictable behavior. The 24-year-old was found quickly in a local halfway house and was arrested. He admitted to the 3 murders, saying that he had shot his father 5 times, bludgeoned his older stepbrother, Derek, to death with a hammer, and then raped and shot his stepmom, Susan. Lisk Jr. took his own life in prison in 2015.
Like a coward. The fifth and final victim of LA serial killers Lawrence Bittaker and Roy Norris was Shirley Lynette Ledford. The two men were some of the cruelest serial killers to ever disgrace this planet. The duo were known as the Toolbox Killers because of their vile and perverse penchant for tool-based torture, and they would often film their crimes. On Halloween night of 1979, the duo snatched 16-year-old Shirley from a gas station where she had been hitchhiking home from a Halloween party. They beat her, raped her, tortured her externally and internally with pliers, and eventually strangled her with a wire coat hanger. Finally, they dumped her body on a random front lawn. After killing Shirley so viciously, the pair were caught a month after killing her, and they both are still imprisoned in maximum security facilities to this day, and both remain without remorse.
The number of people that would just hitchhike back in the day is baffling to me.
Oh, yeah, because I would never. Like, ever since I was young, it was like, don't pick up hitchhikers.
Right. Don't hitchhike, because who's picking you up?
And don't pick up hitchhikers. And I think it was probably because of the 70s and the 80s, when a lot of people were murdered. And we've only kind of brought that back with Uber.
Right.
I don't think I would do Uber or Lyft alone.
I've done it.
Unless
it is kind of scary.
I think there is now, though, a app where it's female drivers only for female riders.
Well, and it's kind of a sense of checks and balances with Uber and Lyft and stuff like that, because like these people have to go through screenings.
Yeah.
But then like you can see their ratings and stuff before you're like, okay, I'll take this one.
Right.
You know, so it's fine. I've done it alone.
Yeah.
It was kind of scary, but I mean,
like I've done it, but I've never done it alone.
I've done it alone,
and I've never booked one.
I picked one up. I got an Uber or whatever from the airport in Vegas, and like I've never been to Vegas, so I didn't know what to expect.
Yeah,
and like the route in which he was taking me to where I needed to go, it looked like we were going through like underground tunnels, like under all these hotels and stuff, and it was so scary. I was like just sending my location, like here's where I am. I feel like I'm about to get murdered. But it was fine. It was fine. He was actually really nice. I can't tell you how many Ubers that trip. It was nice. Like any trip that we go on generally, except for this Denver trip, we'll Uber instead of renting a car.
Makes sense.
And it's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, this next one. So we've all heard the old wives' tale about checking your candy on Halloween for poison or drugs. And fortunately for us, no one's really doing that. But it did happen once, though, and I will tell you, we check our kids mainly so that I can get first pick of what I want out of their candy.
And also, you don't want to give them candy that has been opened.
Right,
or that, like,
right.
You know.
I 10 out of 10 check ours, but it's mainly for so that I can get pick of the litter.
Dibs, yeah.
In Texas of 1974, Ronald Clark O'Brien laced 5 pixie sticks with potassium cyanide and planned to kill 5 of the local children, his son being among them. But why 4? The plan was to blame the poisonings on a different neighbor and see him go to prison so that O'Brien could collect the insurance policy he had taken out on his young son. At his dad's suggestion, 11-year-old Timothy ate his cyanide-filled candy, which had enough cyanide to kill 2 people. Within an hour, Timothy was hospitalized and declared dead. Fortunately for the other 4 children, local detectives acted fast and figured out what had occurred due to the scent on Timothy's breath. The other pixie sticks were confiscated before they could be consumed. On March 31st of 1984, Ronald Clark O'Brien, dubbed the man who killed Halloween, was executed by the state of Texas via lethal injection. As the liquid chemicals were entering his veins, a baying mob of 300 locals shouted "trick or treat" and threw hard candy at a small group of anti-death penalty protesters.
I don't know that I would like 300 people yelling trick or treat at me.
That's crazy, but also I'm here for it in this
Yeah.
instance.
Yeah. Without getting into it, I can see both sides of like
Right.
the death penalty argument. The murder of Chris Jenkins, a University of Minnesota student who disappeared on Halloween of 2002. His body turned up in the Mississippi River about 4 months later, still in his Halloween costume. It is believed that Chris's murder is connected to the smiley face murder theory. Between 1997 and 2008, authorities across the Midwest and northeastern states of the U.S. pulled the corpses of nearly 50 young men from various bodies of water. There were similarities surrounding each of the mysterious deaths that led to a pair of retired former NYPD detectives, Kevin Gannon and Anthony Durati?
I would say Duarte.
To investigate in more detail. The pair eventually concluded that the deaths were definitely linked and that foul play was involved in all of the cases. At many of the original recovery sites, there was unusual graffiti discovered of a smiley face. The former detectives theorized that these stylized graffiti works were the calling card of the killer or killers, which effectively served as a signature, but also as an arrogant taunt to the police. As time went on, more and more of these seemingly connected deaths were being reported and investigated, to the point that it went beyond being statistically possible. A young man would vanish, and days later his body would be found in a body of water. There were other areas that seemed to be reporting similar cases, including Canada and Europe. Some believers of the smiley face murder theory claim that there are hundreds of victims linked to these otherwise unexplainable drownings. There is actually quite a lot of information about this theory, and I would actually like to dive into it one day. But that said, it is believed that Chris Jenkins' death may be tied to this mysterious smiley face murder theory, and his death was ultimately believed by local police to have been either an accidental drowning or a suicide. But the similarities between Jenkins' death and those of many other young men who have been found in water across North America have led many to wonder if there's not more to the story.
That makes me, because I've never heard of that, so
Yeah.
how many of these here in the past couple of years?
Right. Have you heard that new Haley Williams song?
No.
Cumberland keeps snatching bodies. And then, lo and behold, there's another story of them pulling another body out of the Cumberland.
Okay. On Halloween of 1957, LA hairdresser Peter Fabiano opened his door for trick-or-treaters, but before he could reach for the gobstoppers to throw into the brown paper bag that one of the visitors was holding, bullets shot from the bag and into his chest. He was shot to death with the .22 caliber pistol, and the pair wielding the weapon were Goldine Pizer and Joan Rabel. Both of them pled guilty to the murders and served lengthy prison sentences. The two women were lovers, and Joan was seeing Fabiano's wife, Betty, as well. Joan was filled with jealousy and rage and plotted to get Peter out of the picture with Pizer's assistance. The two picked Halloween as it was the perfect night to skulk about the neighborhood in disguise, and they were correct. That still didn't help them get away with it, though. Wild of Joan to be jealous of her girlfriend having a husband, but isn't worried about her other girlfriend. I thought the same thing as I was reading this. I was like, that makes a lot of sense. Like her new girlfriend helped her do this.
You can have two girlfriends, but your one girlfriend can't have a husband?
Right.
Make it make sense. Make it make sense, girl. On Halloween of 1973 in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, which is where my grandmother is from, 9-year-old Lisa French dressed up as the littlest hobo and went out trick-or-treating. But Lisa only made it to her next-door neighbor's house. Gerald Turner opened his door to Lisa and took her into his home and shut the door behind her. Turner then raped and murdered her, stuffed her body into a plastic bag, and dumped her in a field nearby. As of 2018, the Halloween killer has been eligible for parole. However, the state parole board have continuously denied his release, citing the very understandable argument that he is a sexually violent person and should not be released back into society.
Agreed. Let him rot.
Yeah. Yeah.
12-year-old TJ Darisol knocked on the door of Quentin Patrick on Halloween in Sumter, North Carolina in 2008 and was expecting to receive candy. However, what he got was 29 bullets through the front door from a fully automatic AK-47. 11 of the shots hit young TJ, killing him instantly. His dad and his younger brother were behind him and were hit as well, but they both survived the incident. Turned out that Quentin was a convicted drug dealer that had upset a rival gang of dealers and was fully expecting retribution. But what he ended up with was the blood of TJ Darisol on his hands and 30 years in prison. Not enough, if you ask me.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. David, son of Sam Berkowitz, was responsible for New York City's 1977 Summer of Sam Reign of Terror. He somehow knew about the murders of Ronald Sisman and Elizabeth Platzman in advance, though. He didn't plan or commit the murders of the Manhattan couple, and he was already in jail when he predicted their Halloween 1981 deaths. He said they would be shot in the head, execution style. He said he was only partially responsible for the killings as he had been accused of, and says that he was part of a satanic cult. He said that Sisman had a video of one of the Son of Sam shootings that was going to make its way to authorities. So he said the cult killed Sisman to protect themselves. Is there much to the rumor? But in Terry's The Ultimate Evil, he argues in great detail that there is validity to this, but it is almost certain that the truth will never emerge. On that Halloween night, photographer Ronald Sisman and Smith College student Elizabeth Platzman were brutally beaten and shot in their Manhattan apartment. Their home was ransacked and their identities were removed, and a registered handgun was taken. The handgun was registered to Sisman. There was no presence of forced entry, which deepened the mystery. The Son of Sam prediction only added another sinister layer to this case. At the time, police suspected that robbery was the motive for the double homicide, and they raised the possibility that Mr. Sisman knew his murderer since there was no sign of forced entry, which suggested that he let them in. And the murders remain unsolved to this day. That's kind of sad.
All right. Killers in masks is most often something reserved for horror movies, and when it does occur, it is often committed by someone wearing a mask from a film. The murder of 19-year-old Brooklyn man Anthony Seabury in 2013 was committed by a man sporting a ghost face mask from the Scream film franchise. The case remains unsolved, and it is thought that the shooting of Seabury is connected with other shootings across New York City that night, in which a man was later shot and killed by police officers.
Halloween night of 2004, Adrian Insogna, Leslie Mazzara, and Lauren Menza spent much of the night handing out candy to the door-knocking kids in their neighborhood in Napa, California. At approximately 11 p.m., the three women went to bed, but there was one more person who would knock on their door that night. After hearing a blood-curdling scream and heavy footsteps throughout the house, Lauren ducked out of the back door of the house and hid in the yard. Once she heard someone climb out of the basement window and run off the property, she made her way back into the home and around the staircase toward the rooms where she heard the screaming. What she found was her roommate Leslie face down in a pool of her own blood. Toward the back of the bed crouched Adrian, barely alive and bleeding severely. Lauren was mortified and gasped and slipped on the blood as she tried to make her way out. It took 11 months of investigation to lead detectives to the perpetrator. They uncovered a piece of evidence strong enough to link the case with a suspect. Cigarette butts had been found around the perimeter of the home, and this was withheld from the public for a time. But when it was released, a young man who was associated with the three women wrote to his parents that he was planning to end his life. He didn't follow through, and his family convinced him to turn himself into police instead. Eric Koppel, 26 at the time, confessed to murdering both Leslie and Adrian and was promptly arrested by Napa police. He had no previous criminal record and was described as a sweet, gentle man who was publicly adored by his wife even during the trial. He was married to Adrian's best friend, Lily Pradhami. And Lily was close to Adrian as co-workers and gym partners. But overall, their friendship was brief, and they had only known each other for a short time since Adrian had moved to the area. He never fully gave an explanation of his motive, but there are two current theories that Eric was resentful and possessive over any and all relationships that Lily had that may take time away from him, and which honestly, I've experienced that, and but according to Eric himself, he had a recollection of leaving his home with a knife that night, but had no memory of entering the home or of what transpired afterward, claiming that he had blacked out. But he did go home, and he did burn his clothes and shoes that same night, which indicated that he knew what he was doing, and he knew the consequences of his actions. Lauren lives a low-profile life now, and apart from a 2006 interview with the Napa Valley Register, she admitted that her healing journey began when she saw Koppel sentenced to life. As of 2023, Lily Koppel, who had publicly defended her husband during his trial, continues to live in the neighborhood where the murders occurred.
That's crazy.
I would have moved.
Yeah.
I would have divorced him and moved. Changed my name.
That's crazy. Anyway. Well, that's it. How long has that been? 27 minutes.
22.
I almost said 23.
When this episode comes out, we'll have already had the Halloween party. So you still don't know what I was. You won't find out till next week. Let me find my nonprofit. We'll fill some time with this because I think this will be the last time it'll be read for the month. So, my nonprofit for October is Tennessee Voices. Mental health is something that is near and dear to my heart, and as we approach the darker months of the year when seasonal depression can ramp up, I wanted to touch on one of the resources we have in Tennessee. The mental health crisis in Tennessee and why Tennessee Voices exists. Across Tennessee, tens of thousands of children, adults, and families are struggling with untreated mental health conditions, generational trauma, and the crushing stressors of poverty. These challenges aren't isolated. They ripple outward into classrooms, workplaces, and communities, driving up costs for schools, healthcare systems, and taxpayers. Nearly 4 in 10 Tennessee adults report symptoms of anxiety or depression, or a rate higher than the national average. Or that is at a rate higher than the national average. Tennessee ranks among the top 10 states for both mental illness prevalence and limited access to care, with rural areas facing extreme shortages. Some counties have only one provider for every 6,800 residents.
That's crazy.
Half of the U.S. children experience at least one adverse childhood experience, or ACE, such as abuse, neglect, parental incarceration, or household addiction. These events significantly increase the risk of depression, chronic illness, academic failure, and economic instability in adulthood. Without intervention, these factors create self-perpetuating cycles. A child raised in a home with untreated trauma often becomes an adult struggling to parent, compounding stress for future generations. This economic burden is staggering. Mental health crises lead to ER overuse, workforce disruptions, and public system strain, costing far more than preventative, community-based care. And Tennessee Voices is Tennessee's collaborative leader in mental health and family well-being. And each year they serve thousands of children, parents, and adults all across 95 counties with services that prevent crisis, heal trauma, and build long-term stability, including school-based and outpatient counseling for children and teens, peer and clinical support for adults, addressing trauma, depression, and substance use, family-centered services including caregiver therapy, parenting coaching, and early childhood home visiting, housing stabilization and wraparound programs to keep families intact and prevent system involvement, advocacy and education to reduce stigma, expand access, and change the policies that perpetuate inequity. Their model works because it's whole family, trauma-informed, and community-driven. By healing parents alongside their children, providing critical resources like housing and mental health support, and advocating for systemic change, in Tennessee Voices helps families thrive and communities grow stronger. And should you feel so inclined to donate to this organization, there will be a link to do so in the description of this episode or on any of our socials. I know that was a bit long-winded, but I felt like it was all important information.
Yeah, I like it.
Otherwise, you can follow us
on Facebook,
Instagram,
TikTok,
YouTube.
You can email us at wandersofweird@gmail.com.
Ooh. Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
Bye.
Okay, bye.